Hey everybody, it's Tammy and welcome to relationship video number 2. In this video I am going to talk about the profiles in your chart. So if you've had a chart run, um, on the chart there is two numbers, it kind of looks like a fraction, that say what your profile is. And what your profile is influences how you are. I think a lot of times the centers, like as I go through charts, like you'll look at the centers and you'll say, "Oh, that's the best description of me." But then you look at somebody else and you're like, "Oh, look at your gates. Those are the best descriptions of you," or whatever. I think that in a lot of cases the profile is it's more relevant than we give it credit for. I guess I could put it that way. A lot of the way that I am is represented in my profile. A lot of the way people see me or how I behave or why I do certain things. Same with you, same with everybody. Although I think sometimes when we look at a chart and we get this information, sometimes it resonates right away and sometimes it has to kind of sit there for a little while and you have to be introspective or become aware of it or get input from other places, and then you realize that it's exactly what it says it is. So it's really important in relationships to understand, of course, your profile as well as the profile of others. So the way it's set up, it's kind of like a hexagram, or it is a hexagram. Um, and you'll have one number, which is the more prominent number in your profile, and then the second number adds to it. So, say, for example, um, well, let's just go through each one and then we can blend them together and I can tell you what it's like, because based on other people's profiles, it'll teach you how to become more aware of it. So we'll just start with the regular lines of the profiles. So a 1 is that of an investigator. So if you have a 1 in your profile, whether it be in the first spot or the second spot, you have a very strong urge to gather information. So if you want to do something, if you want to go somewhere, if you want to even have a conversation, you're always asking questions, you're going to a library, you're Googling things, you're looking stuff up all the time to get as much information about that topic as possible. Once you have that information and you understand it and you know it, it almost feels like you've done it, if that makes sense, or that you have the experience of it. And you can still go out and experience it, but you're really not going to do anything until you research it. So say you're going on a hike on a specific mountain. You're going to find out about that mountain. You're going to find out what you might encounter on that mountain. You're going to find out what to do if you encounter things. So by the time you actually go to the mountain, you already have all these resources in your head to make the experience more comfortable, a deeper experience. And then, of course, if something happens, you'll know how to handle it. So there is that part of the investigator. A lot of times, having that, you may over investigate, or you may over analyze, or you may overthink, or you may want too much information before you just go and try something. I personally, because I have it in part of my profile, don't think you can ever have too much information, but sometimes my journey for information has proven discomfort in others, put it that way. So I'm one that if I question something, I'm going to ask the question and I'm going to look for that answer. Some people find my questions to be too much sometimes. In those instances where perhaps there are things being hidden, there's a reaction to those questions. So you really have to play out each of your energies with the person that you're with and with the situation that you're in order to see how it all jives. But so for if you have a 1 in your profile, then you're very investigative, and everything I just said makes sense to you because you've probably just Googled something within the last hour. The next line is the number 2, and that's the line of the hermit. Now, that means that you're going to want alone time. That means that you don't necessarily do things for accolades, or you don't necessarily want to be the center of attention. However, because of the energy around wanting to be a hermit and withdrawing and taking that time to yourself, as I said in the other video, that's when others want to pull you in. So if you have hermit energy, you're always going to be called out for something. So you may not want to go anywhere, but somebody's going to call you and say, hey, do you want to go somewhere? What's really important with this energy is to make sure that you follow your strategy, check with your authority, which we'll talk about in another video, because I think authority is important in large part on how you make decisions. But say for a generator and a manifesting generator, you check with your sacral. Do you want to go to the mall? Yes, no, you know, you can easily get that information. If you have a splenic authority, it's going to be a much quicker response that you may not be able to get repeated at all. So try and check in with yourself when you're asked to do these things as a hermit, because sometimes it is important for you to be called out, and other times it's more important for you to be by yourself. So as much as a hermit wants to be in relationship or wants to be with people, they do have that inner drawing to pull away. So if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, you need to be in a relationship with somebody that can handle that kind of push and pull. There's push and pull in all relationships, but this one is more innate. And it's not always, it's not, I would say in the respect to a hermit, it shouldn't always be weird to the other person. It's more of a natural way of being. The third they call the martyr. I don't know if I love that terminology very much. To me, martyr has always had sort of a negative connotation. But what happens with the line 3 is that they need to experience things. So I once had a partner who had a 3 in his profile, and I would say something like, you know when you're running down the street and it's dark out and then something scares you and you feel like you're running really fast, but you're not running really fast at all? And he would look at me like I was crazy, and he'd say, no, I'd never experienced that. And I'm like, well, can you imagine what it was like? And he would actually have a hard time even imagining what it was like because he'd never experienced it. So it was hard in relationship that way, because here I have investigator in my profile, and here's somebody that needs experience. I can read about something or hear something and relate to it, where the person that has the 3 really needs to experience that themselves. Something else that happens with the line 3 is they need to mix up their experiences, because this is how they grow and change and become. So it might be that sometimes they don't want to have just one person in a relationship, and they want to try out a bunch of different flavors, so to speak. Or they will sometimes try something and fail, and they'll take that as a mistake, or they'll take it as a failure, where really it's just a learning experience. So not everything line 3 does is going to be successful, but those experiences teach and train for more information. So if you are even in a relationship with someone that has a 3 in their profile, you can use that information to try and help them and be like, well, even if it's a child or something, yeah, well, you tried that and it wasn't successful. What did you learn from it? Or what can we take from that to try it again in a different way? Or, those kinds of things. It's not always a failure, and it doesn't mean you have to quit, and it doesn't mean you have to not try it again. What can be challenging to be in a relationship with somebody with the 3 is that they have that mentality, and they don't always want to hear when you're trying to encourage. So again, you have to fall back on their strategy and your strategy to make sure that you're building the conversation in a manner that everybody is comfortable with. So that's the line 3. Why martyr is thrown in there, I'm really not sure. Maybe it's the whole, that was a mistake, I'm a loser kind of mentality. I don't know. But in all of those so far, you can see how it's really important to understand what the profile is of your partner, or what your own profile is. So then we move to the upper line. So the line 4 is an opportunist. Line 4s are networkers. They want relationships. They need those relationships in order to move forward. They like to have a bunch of friendships or have a bunch of business relationships, so that they can always fall back on it. So where it says opportunist, it's really not, some may take advantage of opportunities in a negative way, but it's a more positive, you want to have a lot of friendships and relationships so that you can always go to somebody when you're, needing an extra hand. what happens, and this will come up later when I go through them, but if you're a hermit and an opportunist, that can cause a little bit of a bump in your own energy, because some of you wants to fall back, and then the other part wants to be out there networking and gathering information and making those connections. So there could be times where you don't want to deal with anybody, and there could be times when you want to deal with everybody. The line 5 is called the heretic. Um, it's about helping others. It's about guiding. It's about drawing people to you. People with the 5 are charismatic. There's a real genuine energy that others want to be near. However, what can happen is there's a projection around this. And with a line 5, a lot of times the way somebody thinks of you is the way the person is going to perceive you, whether it's true, whether they've met you, whether they've had any interaction with you at all, whether they've watched a video, no matter what. They're going to come up with this perceived idea of who and what you are. Sometimes, and it's funny because this happens, I am a 5. I'm actually a 5-1. But what'll happen is people actually think that they had conversations. I originally, when I heard this from my mentor, Karen, I was kind of like, I don't know. And then it drew my awareness to it, so I started to see it more and more, is that people actually think they had conversations with you that never really happened. Or people perceive how you say something in a totally different way. So, as I spoke about investigators earlier, I'm investigative. I ask questions. I've had a couple of relationships where I've actually been hated for the amount of questions that I will ask somebody, or for the amount of information and detail that I'm looking for. I don't see a problem with it, because I'm just saying, hey, what'd you do today? And that person's like, what did I do today? Why do you need to know what I did today? Blah, blah, blah. You're always asking questions. 95% of the time, that person's trying to hide something, just for the record. But it comes up. Like, I ask questions. I want to know. I have feelings that I will state. I might state, gee, I wish you were here today. And I'm just thinking, gee, I wish they were here today. I'd have something to do. Like today, for example, I'm a little bored, so you're getting your second video a lot faster than I thought I'd do it. So if I say I'm bored today, it doesn't mean, like, some people will think, oh my God, I have to entertain her. Oh my God, she's always wanting to do something. When that's really not what it was. It's just me saying, I'm informing, I'm being, I have this information, I'm bored, whatever it is. It could be nothing. But the way that it's interpreted is that way. Now, once that happens, it's very difficult, especially for someone who's unaware, to shake that. It's very difficult for someone to go from, she asks way too many questions, to, I really just want to have a conversation with her. There's that perception that it's really deep and it's really ingrained, and it doesn't matter if I'm being a jerk or being the sweetest thing in the world. No matter what that person's perception is in that moment, tends to stick for some time. So that's something that is a little fishy with a 5. But again, the charisma, the people being drawn, it's just really, it's a strong energy. Then we have the line 6, and the line 6 has some really kind of weird things that go along with it too. Up until you're 28 and a half-ish, the first 28 years of your life, you're trying things, you're doing things, you're having new experiences, you're gathering information, you're failing, you're succeeding, you're doing all these things. Around the age of 28, and 6 months, so 28 and a half, you are starting to want to pull away from those things. I've watched this with a very close friend of mine. She always loves to do things and go places and have fun and this, that, and the other thing. And then she reached this age and she was like, you know what? These weddings are getting really boring to go through. She'd still go to them out of obligation, but she didn't have as much fun as she did years before. You kind of stay in this thing until you are 50, although I have seen it a few years before 50. I think sometimes some people jump into these phases a little sooner than others, just based on what I've seen. But then when you're 50, you want to do all these things again. And the theory is that all the things you failed at, or all the things that you didn't understand, you're going to understand more at the age of 50 from first experiencing themselves. Then from 28 to 50, you're kind of watching other people and gaining experience through their responses to certain things, gathering that information. So when you step out at 50 in the line 6, you're more open, you're more wanting to get out there like you were when you were younger, but you have these different tools to bring with you. So you end up actually teaching others. You end up being the role model. So you go through your things, you watch people go through their things, and then you combine it all. So when you come out when you're 50, you kind of have information to share with others. I've seen a lot of people change like careers and life focus between 40 and 50, and I think in a large part, sixes will do this, because you might be in one industry for all this time and then suddenly realize as you get closer to 50 that maybe that isn't where you should be, or you'd be better served in a different position where you can teach and grow and learn with others. So when you're in that period from being like 28 to 50, if you don't already have a partner, you're going to feel the loss of not having a partner in that time, because what else the 6 does is the 6 really wants their soulmate. They really want that relationship. They really want that bond. So shortly after 28 is where I see a lot of these people settle down as well. And I mean, in this day and age, that's usually about the age where people settle down, but I've also seen those who are not in any kind of serious relationship and at ages like 40, and they're really down about it, where it's hard, but if you can somehow let these people know that, especially if you have me run a chart, that they're aligned 6 and there's reasons that this is happening. And it's hard to say to someone, hey, when you're 50, you're going to have the best time ever. Because to us, I mean, I'm getting closer to that age, but to a lot of people, 50, you know, it seemed really old at one point. And although it doesn't feel that old to me now, I still, up until probably about a year ago, I'm not going to lie, maybe even 6 months ago, had an adverse reaction to the age 50, where now I just realized that the people who are 50 were the same people who were 18 when I was 14 or whatever, you know? So anyway, that's a positive outcome for a line 6. So now we look at the profiles. So the profiles are a 1-3, which is the investigator martyr. Now, a 1-3 is cool in that they have the investigator and they have the experience. So they're going to go and have tons of experiences and want information before they have those experiences. Where someone that just has the 3, is like a 3, say a 3-5, is going to just run out and do these things, not knowing what the outcome may be. So when you have a 1-3, you're able to have that desire to get information before you jump into something, so you kind of know what the outcomes could be. You know before you go skiing that either you're going to know how to do that swervy thing they do, or you may not and you're going to fall. You're not going to take that to heart because you already looked at the information beforehand. So I would say a 1-3 is a stronger type of strategy, a stronger type of profile to have, because you are able to look into that information and see what the pros and cons are of things before you jump in and experience them. But again, even if you just have the 3 as your first number, know that not everything is going to be successful and not everything is going to be for you. And when things do fail, to look back at how you entered them and make sure you followed your strategy, and then try, if you didn't, to follow your strategy better the next time. A 1-4 would be the investigator opportunist. So in this case, again, you have that investigative quality that you're going to look into certain things before you go out and network the people together. So a 1-4 would be great in business, because you can research all this information and then go out and handpick those people that you want on your team, or go to the right people that'll get you to the places that you need to go. The hermit opportunist, like I said, a 2-4, can be great in that you are being called out and you are making these, you know, connections with people, and you're networking and you're getting all this stuff done, but you always will have this inner desire to be alone. Just take that time alone. Sometimes you need to decompress. You know, if you're a 2-4 and you have a house full of people, you may need to go outside, or you may need to get those people out for a little while. And it's not that you don't love them, and it's not that you don't care, but you need that time by yourself to recharge and regenerate and to feed that energy. And then you'll be in perfect condition to go out and network. Now, again, remember that you need to enter into these things according to your strategy. So whether it's going to a party, going out with a bunch of friends, going on a date, going to a meeting, going to a networking event, anything like that, just make sure you're following your strategy. And if something in you is telling you don't do it, don't push yourself all the time, because usually those are the times that we end up not coming out the way we wanted to. Then there's the 2-5, which is the hermit and the heretic. So again, this is a hermit situation where you're going to want time alone, but there's also such a charismatic, energetic side of you that people are drawn to, that they're going to pull you out probably twice as hard as, say, a 2-4, because you have that 5 energy and people really want to be around you. Now, however, there's also that other side of the 5 where people are going to perceive you to be a certain way. So it's possible that because you are a hermit, people are going to label you bitch or jerk, and it has nothing to do with anything that you did, and it's just their perception, and trying to change their perception may or may not help you. So a lot of times I'm finding what I'm starting to do with those times where people are giving me these, they're perceiving me to be a certain way, I just kind of move away from them and let them figure out their own bad selves and see what happens later on. You may try to reintroduce to that group or try and talk to that person again and see what happens. But generally, in my experience, when they have such a perception, you're not going to change it. And again, something I don't know if I've mentioned in these videos, which I really have to, is that this is energy and it's not personal. So even when you're with somebody with the gate 10 and they're beating you down with their truthfulness and honesty about what they think of you, it's energy. You don't have to own it. So if somebody doesn't like the energy that you're giving out, or they would rather choose to perceive you in a way that isn't how you want to be perceived, let it go. It has nothing to do with you. It never did. So then the 3-5, which again is the martyr heretic, which I like to call the experimenter heretic, is somebody who likes to go out and try all different things and probably has a lot of people running around following them because of that 5 energy as well. And it's really important just to look out for failures and mistakes and things like that that happen. Doesn't mean they're permanent. Look at how you entered the situation. Look at what you could change if you tried it again. Look at what you can learn from that experience, and just don't give up on it. Just keep going. You're out there to gain this information, to have this wisdom, and to pass it on to others. So it's really important not to take things as personal tragedies that really were just a mistake, a hiccup, sidetracking. Try and make the best out of what happens in those situations. Then there's the 4-6, which is the opportunist role model. Again, somebody who can go out and network and make those connections that they need to make and be successful. And then they have this role model quality. What will happen in here is between 28 and 50, you may not want to go and network as much as you did before. But when you sit back and you see how other people are networking or what they're doing to get their business or relationships going, things like that, by that time of 50, you're going to be a pro and you're going to be able to do it. Then we have the 4-1, which is the opportunist investigator. Again, that's somebody who's going to want to go out and make all these connections, but then, before you go out, you're going to Google it and see what's the best way of doing something, who are the best people to be in touch with, that kind of stuff. We get to the 5-2, which again can be a little strenuous because people are going to be perceiving you to be one way. You might want to come across a different way. You want time to yourself, but they're going to call you out. And if you do allow yourself to be called out in situations that aren't to the best interest of you, which means listen to your authority, follow your strategy, then you could end up in situations where people have perceptions that aren't what you wanted them to have. But remember, when you're following your strategy and you're listening to your authority, if you say no to somebody, it comes out as a much more natural no, and people tend to be less mad at it than if you make something up or, if you try to avoid the conversation, things like that. So remember, when you have these strong responses as far as your authority and your strategy, they're rarely going to result in something terrible. It's usually when we're not following our strategy and we're not listening to our authority that the crappy stuff happens. So then we have the 6-2, which is the role model hermit, which for them, between the ages of 28 and 50, you can really go into the cave then. They call it being on the roof. I call it sitting in the cave. Whatever you want to do. You know, you be on the roof to watch it, whatever. For a hermit who is also a 6 line, I would say it's more like going into a cave. Don't let yourself get too depressed. Don't give up on things. Just try to understand that because you're in this phase, this is your energy, and you're doing the best that you can do. It's better to listen to yourself in those times where you really don't want to deal with anybody than try and force yourself to listen to people. If you have a defined head and the gates of madness, it can be very difficult to sit home by yourself because your mind's going and going and going. But still check in with your authority to see how you could better handle it. Learn from the experiences. You know, if you sit in on a Friday night and you're ready to like go crazy, then do something little on the Saturday night kind of thing. Then you have the role model martyr, which again, the experimenter, where you may on certain times want to jump into something, but that 6 line is kind of holding you back. Just wait it out until that energy creates enough power for you to want to go and do it. So now you can take all of these profiles and relate them in relationship. So if you are, say, a 6-2 and you're between 28 and 50 and you're with your soulmate, but they're a 3-5, they're going to want to be out and be social and try things over and over and over again. And you might just want to stay home with the clicker and watch some show. There is nothing wrong with that. What you have to do is kind of, be aware, have communication about it, allow that person to go out and do what they're doing. That person isn't doing it to hurt you. That person's doing it to take care of their energy. So if you look at it as just energy, and you have that communication and bond in the relationship, it's going to make it a lot easier than if you're a 6-2 who thinks they're, in some deep depression, or maybe somebody thinks you're in a deep depression, and you're with that 3-5 who's bounding out the door to try and go try new things with new people because their friends called them. It can cause a lot of stress in relationships. But if you're aware of that energy, it's easier to take it off yourself. It's easier to take it off that person. That person, again, isn't going out to do it to hurt you. That person's just living their life, and they should be allowed to, just as they should allow you to live yours. It doesn't always result in something terrible. It doesn't mean that person's going to go find a replacement. You know what I mean? Not to say that that never happens, but if you can be open and honest about the energy that's going on, and it's something that you don't even have to explain to the other person. If you understand your energy and you know what their energy is, you can go about this without ever telling them that that's what you're doing, because it's all energy. And if you understand the energy, you can shape it and manifest things that you want to manifest. I've been in a few relationships where I've never mentioned this kind of energy to them, or they really didn't want to hear it, or I just didn't feel like explaining it, and it's never steered me in a direction that I couldn't handle. I mean, sometimes things happen that you might be surprised about and they can be hurtful, but as a general rule, if you have the information and you're aware of it and you're using it, you can work through things just on one side of it, really. I'm not even gonna lie. So I'm just trying to think of other ones that might be easy to point out. I think anyone that's with a 6 is going to have to understand that there is going to be that downtime. And if you're a 6, you can acknowledge it, but you can also take advantage of the times that you feel like doing things. So, if your partner asks you to do something on a Friday and you really don't feel like it, but Sunday evening comes around, you can push yourself, or, you can make that request for that person to do it. Another thing is, if you are asking somebody to do something, or if you're trying to make plans and they don't want to, what is their profile? Look at that before you jump to the conclusion that, they don't like you, or they're trying to be a jerk, or they don't like your friends. Look at the energy and see if you can work with that. So, I hope that makes sense. It's a lot of information. You're probably going to have to listen to it a couple times. And remember, if you don't have a chart, the charts are run for free. You can find websites that'll run them for you. You can contact me and I'll run them for you. When I run them, I do send a summary of your type and strategy, as well as a document that goes over the different parts of the charts. with like little brief summaries. But it's really important to have your own chart when you're watching these videos. I mean, I know they make sense and they can be fun without it. And, you know, we can see if I've cleaned stuff off my bureau or if I've gotten my book pile higher behind me, or maybe try and look more at that picture that my friend did for me a while ago. That actually is really cool. See, I'm touching it. That was a friend of mine, Amy, who does drawings, and she tapped into my energy. And a lot of people that she was drawing, they were like these beautiful angelic features, and she sends me mine, and this is it. Which is wicked cool, because really, that's kind of what goes on in my head. So anyway, if you have questions, comments, concerns, you can let me know. I have a special going on right now that I believe I posted as going until the sun leaves the gate 3, which is in about 5 days. I might bump that up to having special pricing for a longer period of time, but I'm not sure. So I'm not going to say anything yet. But but I have knocked off about $20 on an hour call for a composite reading, and I have knocked off, I believe, 10, I think. I can't remember now that I'm looking at it, off of a report for 2 people. You can also go to my website, TammyMurrayCousins.com, and look at my products page for regular pricing. You can go to Tammy Murray Energy Coach on Facebook. I think I've mentioned everything I can. My manifestor friend will be reaching out to tell me what I forgot, so check the comments for things I forgot. And again, just remember, it's never personal, it's just energy, and it's the energy we're pulling towards each other. There was a time where that statement, I was like, are you kidding me? Because I had been in a relationship with some people during my lifetime that could say something, and I just felt like so criticized and so degraded. And you know, when you get that pain in your chest that you're like, oh my God, stop punching me there. And it would happen all the time, because I have this crazy way of drawing people with criticism and correction, and I'm like flighty typo queen. But it used to really, really bother me. And now I'm able to listen to those people make these comments, and I'm able to look at it and say, okay, should I do that? Is that correction necessary? Will it actually result in something greater for me? Or is that person using the lower side of their energy and really, you know, kind of being a jerk? And in which case, I don't have to own any of that. That language or that criticism or that little piece of advice can hang out there, and I don't have to grab onto it. I don't have to feel it, and I certainly don't have to be punched in the chest about it. So remember that. It's not personal, it's just energy. And until we reach out and grab that energy and call it our own or give it a title, it just goes away. It can't do anything else but go away. So sometimes I've even noticed with people like with open throats, if they say something that I would think is dumb, or I don't really care about, or I don't know why they're even saying it, I just don't respond. I'll look at them and I don't respond. And then they're left to question what they said and why they said it and how they said it and if they followed their strategy. So again, not personal, just energy. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos as much as I am making them, because it is actually helping me to get back to where I was about a year ago with all this human design stuff, and I love it because I've missed it terribly. So again, I'll talk to you soon. Don't know when. Not going to put a time frame on the next video. Who knows, it could be an hour from now. But hopefully this will help everyone in their relationships and help people especially to understand why they behave certain ways and why they're pulling to them what they pull to them. All right, thanks. Take care.